What up? It's your boy, King it.And. Welcome back to another episode of the it.And cast. And today, we gotta talk about Nicki Minaj. Sadly. Nicki Minaj, arguably the greatest female rapper of all time, and for some, one of the greatest rappers, period. Because I do feel we should stop genderizing the GOAT conversation. Women should be included in those general GOAT conversations overall. We shouldn't say greatest female rapper and then greatest rapper. Like, that's weird to me. But anyways, she's back at it again. And at this point, she's the female Kanye, y'all. Female yay. Not musically, but in that tragic way where like these legacy legendary artists sometimes self-implode, crash out on the internet whenever they can't handle how the culture is kind of like picking new favorites and new people, moving on a little bit without like outwardly disconnecting from those people, but just saying, hey, there's some new people that we want to pay attention to too. After this discussion, I think we've got to have this conversation of whether we need to move on from Nicki or just hope she gets some type of help. I know she's going to have her barbs that's going to be there and going to support her regardless, which is, you know, an amazing thing in a sense. But maybe, just maybe, the thing that she's been alleging is happening maybe needs to happen. She's kind of manifesting it. To start this conversation, I'm just going to list some of the many things Nicki Minaj has alleged over the past few years, just so my points are understood and that I'm not, you know, coming from a perspective or coming as a person that hates Nicki Minaj and thinks this and that of her, but as a person that grew up, I'm 27 years old. I was there from the beginning and end of Nicki Minaj. You know what I'm saying? I won't say the end, but from the beginning of Nicki Minaj, I watched her become one of the biggest rappers in the game. And now she's caught into this loop of conspiratorial thinking and bitterness towards the same system that she was the queen of. Or one of the queens, you know, because Beyonce there. But as far as hip-hop, the queen of. First allegation. Jay-Z and Roc Nation owes large sums upwards to $100 to $200 million for her stake in Tidal. Second allegation. Sabotage from Roc Nation and Jay-Z against her career. Third accusation. Manipulation or shady behavior by Jay-Z, Roc Nation, and specifically Desiree Perez, and saying that it involves Meg Thee Stallion and how she's been pushed to be this type of person that's going to take down Nicki Minaj. And fourth, claims that Atlantic and other labels have been creating replacement acts, people that are only created or picked up to compete and take down and attack Nicki Minaj, like a Meg Thee Stallion, Cardi B, Lotto, Ice Spice. She even said SZA, but we're focusing on rap right now. Now, before I get into my bigger point, I do want to say a lot of these claims have either no evidence, have been debunked, or contradict the reality that everybody else is living in. So we're going to approach these claims with logic, not from like you're like, I'm not going to treat this like a Drake situation where I'm just calling you a dumbass. No, we're going to just treat this with logic, and we're just going to try and like sympathize, understand what's going on, or what could potentially be going on, and look at the other sides of the stories, because a lot of people just take a lot of people from what I've been seeing are taking what Nicki Minaj is saying and being like, oh, well, maybe she has a point, or maybe, oh, we don't know, when there are things out there that says we should know, it's just not available information. You understand what I'm saying? Some people aren't doing the due diligence, which is a common thing. They're not doing their due diligence on what she's saying, so they're just like, oh, she said that, we don't know, she could be right. When there's things in, there's either no evidence of what she's saying, or there are people that are saying that's not true. But those people don't have the star power of Nicki Minaj. You understand what I'm saying? So that's not going to do the headlines, which is another conversation. Number one, Jay-Z owing Nicki Minaj hundreds of millions of dollars for Tidal. Nicki Minaj herself claims, and I quote, "I didn't get even one red penny. We've calculated about $100 to $200 million so far. Hashtag Jay-Z called me to settle this karmic debt. It's only collecting more interest. You still in my top 5 though." End quote. Now allegedly, or not allegedly, because we saw it happen, in 2025, Nicki Minaj was offered artist ownership in Tidal. She was one of 16 plus people that were offered a stake in Tidal. But according to Steve Stout, she did not sign the paperwork for equity. She says that she was only offered $1 million for the sale and felt it should have been more, alleging hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, what I'm thinking is she didn't sign the paperwork for equity, but I'm pretty sure that they were going to give her a payout for her contribution in the original campaign for Tidal. And I think that was the $1 million that she was offered. We're giving you $1 million because even though you don't have part stake in this company, we're trying to give you something because you were a big part of us gaining an audience or whatever like that. I think that's what it was. And I think that she misconstrued that was her equity share in Tidal and not her actual, but she doesn't have equity share if she didn't sign for equity share. I think they were just saying, here's something just to give you something. They don't owe it to you. They were just giving you something because, hey, you were there at the beginning. You didn't sign the paperwork, but we still gonna give you something out the kindness of our heart. That's what I'm assuming is what happened. But to her saying that she is owed over to 100 to 200 million dollars of equity, let's look at the sale of Tidal. The sale was around 297, 300 million dollars. So if Nicki Minaj did have a cut of the reported 13% that was split between 16 artists, she would have had less than 1% equity, which wouldn't have been hundreds of millions of dollars. It would have been maybe $2 to $3 million, around $2.5, $2.4 million if she had equity in Tidal equivalent to all the other artists that had equity in Tidal. So her wanting hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that she's owed when the company sold for 300 million, that was an 80% sale. And the remaining percentage is split between Jay-Z and the remaining artists. So the people who have equity still have a little bit of equity plus a piece of the sale. The math isn't math. They offer you $1 million, which is less than what you would have gotten if you had equity. But you're saying that you are owed more because you have equity. It doesn't make any sense. Claim number 2. Roc Nation is sabotaging Nicki Minaj. Now, Nicki also claimed that Roc Nation and Jay-Z are working to sabotage her career, which according to her is why she hasn't been dropping music, which, by the way, she has. She's dropped 2 albums since 2023. The latest was like a deluxe, which was last year. She dropped Queen Radio tapes and the Beam Me Up Scotty, which I think might have been a re-release or something like that, all within the last 5 years. So nothing's happening to where Nicki Minaj is not releasing music. She literally just announced the album a few months ago. Announced an album in a few months. You understand? Like, it's in March or something like that. But with this claim, she isn't signed to Roc Nation. She isn't managed by Roc Nation. She's signed to Republic Records under UMG. And she's still Nicki Minaj. Her last project sold over 225K first week. She has over 140 million monthly audiences on YouTube Music. According to YouTube Music, people are kind of trying to check how credible YouTube Music stats is. And over 40 million monthly listeners on Spotify. She was just making fun of Cardi B a few weeks ago because she couldn't sell as much as her. So if this is what being held back or blackballed by the machine, by Roc Nation looks like, then blackball me, Jay-Z, please. Number 3, the replacement acts. Labels like Roc Nation and Atlantic are creating female rappers and acts to take her down. Like Meg Thee Stallion, Cardi B, Ice Spice, Lotto. This is what she's saying. My only thing is, you were the only female rapper at one point, and you were probably very influential on all of these women. You're constantly claiming that these women want to be like you and that they're your clones, as if you were not a very influential woman at one time. She should be proud that she inspired so many women from different cultures and backgrounds to want to rap and compete with men on a commercial level. But instead, she looks at it as some plot to end her career. Most of these ladies, as far as I know, don't try to make a name off of dissing or going at Nicki Minaj. They come in, they do their own thing, and Nicki either goes at them or befriends them just to go at them later on. And with all that, my point is, she keeps talking about a they, this machine plotting against her. But in reality, she seems to be the machine that's plotting against her. You're the biggest, most celebrated woman in hip-hop history. And these women are just trying to match up to the legacy that you created. But you won't let them. And when you do that, you're not fighting for better treatment of black women in the music industry. You're fighting for black women to always know their place and kiss your feet. That isn't accepting evolution. That's continuing to hold down an already marginalized group of artists in a male-dominated space. Now, I've had this discussion with my girlfriend, and she made a point that I've heard a lot on podcasts and from people just trying to be objective, saying, well, if she keeps doing this, maybe there's something deeper she's trying to tell us. And my rebuttal is, well, then say what it is. Not just say it, show receipts. Too many times, we give certain people of a certain stature, class, or fame the benefit of the doubt when they start crashing out and just saying shit. And that only enables that behavior. You're telling that person, I don't know what you're talking about, but because you are who you are, I won't do no research and I won't question it because I believe you might have a point. And that's a culture we need to stop. Because most of the time, when we're hearing people out because they might have a point or know something we don't, they never provide facts. They never provide proof. It's always vague, and it usually comes from the ego being hurt. And they don't have to provide facts because some people are going to believe them anyways. Some people are going to be open to whatever they're saying anyways. And that's a problem. They get performative and they start making up reasons for why they aren't where they once were. For example,
UMG created now like us to try and sabotage me and tear down because I was trying to get a bigger deal and they didn't want to pay me.
Huh? We do this too often, giving the rich, famous, and powerful too much grace just because we think they must know something that we don't. When in reality, that creates a blind trust, and that's how we become manipulated, misled, and used as pawns in whatever capitalistic scheme that they have going on. Nicki Minaj has built this narrative that the industry is plotting to sabotage or replace her, but in reality, she's still the most decorated and visible female rapper of all time, commercially and culturally. The contradiction between her success and her persecution complex shows how insecurity and ego can sometimes distort your perspective. Especially when you were a once untouchable artist that's starting to see a generational shift in a genre that you helped build. She's not sounding like an underdog that's being silenced. She's looking like a paranoid legend refusing to pass the torch. When you've been the only female rapper at the top for nearly a decade, your identity gets tied to your success. So when a new generation, Cardi B, Meg Thee Stallion, Doja Cat, Ice Spice, Lotto, rises, often saying that you were their inspiration, it can feel like replacement, not evolution. That shift triggers ego anxiety, the sense that legacy equals loss of relevance. And in hip hop, a genre built on competition, that anxiety manifests as they're plotting against me narratives instead of introspection. Going back to the idea that maybe she does have a point or some bigger agenda, if that's true, then what exactly is that battle? And what side is she actually on? Because when you're targeting other black artists, especially other black women, it doesn't look like you're fighting the system. It looks like you're fighting the people affected by the exact same system in the exact same way that you are. If your target is always people that you deem less successful than you, then you're not being rebellious, you're being oppressive. The sad part is the internet feeds her worst impulses. Every meltdown trends, every rant boosts her streams. She's talked about on the biggest podcast and posted on the biggest media platforms. So even if she's wrong, the system keeps rewarding her for it. The machine she says is against her is actually the one that she's feeding. At this point, Nicki doesn't sound like a whistleblower giving us the insights on the industry. She sounds like someone blowing smoke to hide her own insecurities. Fame creates isolation. When your identity is built on being the best, being the biggest, any change feels like betrayal. Getting older in a youth-obsessed industry is brutal, especially for women, even black women. And instead of adapting and embracing, she's resistant. That paranoia becomes a coping mechanism. It's easier to believe in plots than to accept natural evolution. To accept that you created something bigger than yourself. She's not fighting the system. She's fighting time. She's fighting a reality that the same torch that she carried inspired other people to light their own torch. And instead of being proud, she's angry that the fire is spreading. And she's blaming the spreading fire on Jay-Z, Roc Nation, Atlantic, Republic, and even most recently, as of yesterday, the LAPD, Charlemagne, who nothing that she said, as far as I know, has been verified yet. I don't know what she's talking about. Everyone is responsible for her mistakes, her insecurities, her downfall. Everyone except for her. So maybe the question isn't just, what's up with Nicki? Maybe it's, what happens when a legend can't evolve with their own legacy? Do we let them spiral? Do we just let them crash out? Or do we help them see that what they've built is already immortal? We won't forget about Nicki Minaj. The current crop of women rappers shows we won't forget about Nicki Minaj because, as Nicki Minaj always says, these bitches is my sons. Even when there were no bitches to be her sons, there were none. But now there is. Your legacy's gonna live on. The brands come from, Foxy Brown, Lil' Kim, of course. But Nicki Minaj was Nicki Minaj. She created a legacy of her own, and she created a culture of her own. Now we have a Lotto, even a rap scene. Like you could say, oh, these people don't fit into, but like just the fact that Nicki Minaj was a rapper, a female rapper rapping with the men, that spawns a Doechii, that spawns a Rhapsody, that spawns a Lotto, that spawns a Cardi, that spawns a Ice Spice, a Sexy Red, that spawns so many types of women from, because that she gave them the confidence, like, I could do this. I could do this. You understand what I'm saying? Especially in the newer generation. A lot of these newer female rappers grew up on Nicki Minaj. Some of them didn't grow up on Foxy. Some of them didn't grow up on Eve or grow up on Lil Kim. Some of them grew up on Nicki Minaj. And you can see it. You can hear it. You should be proud of that. Maybe it's time to hope she gets some help. Because watching her spiral like this feels less like entertainment and more like she crying out for help. What y'all think? That's it for me. Shout out Nicki Minaj. Shout out Nicki Minaj. That's it for me. I'm out. Too sweet.